cocaine is a hell of a drug.
All right, everybody. I am Steve. This is A is for Alice, B is for Bob, C is for cocaine. Because it's the 1980s, man, and not just the subject of this video, but many rock stars are loving the white stuff. Where do we leave off? Well, 70s. Glenn was very busy man, very productive, despite his habits. And if you watch the first one, 1970s, part one, fantastic. If you haven't seen it, oh man, killer stuff. But I made two mistakes. And Keith at Back in the Groove over in jolly old England, yep, that way is east. So jolly old England is that way. Let me know in the comments. I omitted two, and as soon as I read it, I was like, yeah, I knew that one. I forgot about it. And then there was one other that I completely just overlooked. So, which ones did he refresh my memory about? Trapeze, self-titled album, 1975. And Glenn also co-writes the song Chances and sings on it. This is a fantastic album. Mel Galley, very underrated guitarist. 1977 then, Pat Travers, and I love the first 4 or 5 Pat Travers albums. And Glenn sings back up on Stevie. How the hell did I miss that one? Jesus Christ. All right, so even Glenn will admit the 1980s lost decade for him. He's become unreliable, undependable. He's pretty much persona non grata, not finding a lot of work. So where do we start in the 1980s for him? Well, he goes to see Mr. Pat Travers live. And while he's sitting there watching, he's blown away by the guitar playing. But not necessarily Pat Travers. It is Pat Travers' second guitarist. Another Pat Thralls. He's sitting there and he's thinking to myself, my God, I found my next Tommy Bolin. And so he goes backstage, hangs around a little bit after the show, talks to Pat Thralls, and as they're parting ways, they both kind of agree, you know what, we have to do something down the road. Let's get together, some kind of collaboration. So they do, and but that takes care of 1980. You know, not much else happening on that year for Glenn. And then 81 is really kind of a dead year too, because the only thing I could find that Glenn did was he sang backup on this album by Climax Blues Bands. What's this, Lucky for Some, right? Yeah, Lucky for Some. And he sings back up on the third song, Shake It Lucy. But you know what? You hardly even hear him. He's too far down in the mix. How do you have a singer like that? Why do you even waste your time bringing in a singer like that if you're not going to bring him up in the mix? So call Steven Wilson. Have him remix your album, would you? So now, 1982 rolls around. Pat Thralls and Glenn Hughes finally get together, and they come up with a very clever band name title. It's Hughes Thrall. Look at that album cover. My God, that is just, who the hell put this together? That is lazy. It's a decent album. You have Frankie Benali of Quiet Riot fame playing drums here, although this is only 82, so I think first Quiet Riot album came out in 83, so he will go on to bigger and better things. This album tanks. You can find this anywhere. Any collector show you go to, record store, garage sale probably. They were given $250,000 from the record company to put it together, and Glenn Hughes says they probably spent half of that on cocaine. So what's happening next then? Well, after that tour, they decide, okay, let's try and put together a second album. I can't believe they're getting the blessing from the record company for it, but they do. And what happens is Pat Thralls just finds it to be too frustrating. Glenn, he can't get Glenn into the studio. Pat's got like 3 or 4 songs worked up already. And so they just kind of sit there in limbo. Nothing really happens. At some point here, Pat Thrall's brother ends up sleeping with Glenn's wife, Karen. So Glenn doesn't like this. Normally it's Glenn who's screwing around on the side of his wife. He doesn't like it when it's happening to him. So, and Glenn says it didn't destroy the relationship between him and Pat Thralls, but things were different after that happened. So Glenn goes on a 5-day bender. Timing's perfect, too, for his wife, Karen, because Glenn's parents just arrived from England to spend some time with them. So Karen is left to entertain the in-laws. Next up in 1983, Night Ranger, Midnight Madness. This is a pretty damn good album. Glenn is invited to sing backing vocals on the song You Can Still Rock in America. So, but as you can see, Glenn, he's not bringing in a lot of money now these days. And then his buddy, Gary Moore, asked him to appear on this album, Run for Cover. This is a pretty good album, 1985, I think, right? But you got quite a other number of luminaries on here. You've got Phil Lynott from Thin Lizzy, Bob Daisley, you got Don Airey, Rainbow Deep Purple fame. I think that's it. Oh yeah, Neil Carter from UFO is on here too. So then his buddy Mel Galley from the Trapeze Years. Mel and his brother Tom have put together this project called Phenomena, and it's ended up being 4 albums, concept albums, very convoluted story. Extensive liner notes. I'm not even going to bother reading them. If you want to find out about it, buy the box set. Throw the guys a little couple bucks or something. I'll tell you what, this album, I like it. I would really like it if it didn't have, man, this 1985, 86, I think. It's the production that kills it. You know what I mean. You've heard enough stuff from that era. But once again, it's another group of really good musicians. You got Neil Murray of Whitesnake, Black Sabbath. You got Cozy Powell, who played Black Sabbath, but also with Jeff Beck, and got hundreds of other people. Ted McKenna, who was the drummer for Sensational Alex Harvey Band, and Rory Gallagher. You got Don Airey again. And in 1986, Tony Iommi is putting together a solo album. Black Sabbath they're kind of lost at this point. Don't know what's happening here. He thinks he's going to have just, maybe 4 or 5 singers on the album, maybe even more than that, singing different songs. He doesn't want a particular, just one guy singing. So he has Glenn Hughes come in. They work on a couple songs, and Tony said he knew after 2 songs that Glenn Hughes had to be the lead singer for the album. Okay. Problem is, the record company tells Tony Iommi, hey, look, man, we want this to go under the banner name of Black Sabbath. It's going to sell more. So, the album, 7th Star. See it right there. Black Sabbath featuring Tony Iommi. I like this album. I know a lot of people don't. But, so what happens is Tony gives Glenn a tape recorder to take back with him to his apartment, wherever he's staying. Tony's got some riffs for Glenn to listen to, kind of come up with lyrics for it. And what happens when you give a drug addict something that's of value? Well, I'll tell you what they do. They go out and sell it. And then they take that money and spend it on drugs. So, I have to flip my page here because I don't remember everything off the top of my head. Tony forgives him, finishes the album. Glenn was paid $20,000 to do this, and I didn't do the inflation adjustment to see what that's worth 40 years later. But Tony keeps all the publishing rights. So, in the meantime, now Glenn has met a 19-year-old, and at this point, I think Glenn's 35. This 19-year-old girl named Christine. He says she is the most beautiful woman in the world that he has ever seen. So, Glenn has to break it to his wife Karen that he's leaving her. So the album comes out, 7th Star, and Glenn Hughes wasn't happy about the fact wasn't an Iommi solo project. He's like, you know what? He says, I'm an Ozzy fan. That's Black Sabbath for me. He says, Ronnie James Dio was a very good replacement. He says, but that's it. Those are the two singers for Black Sabbath. He says, Ian Gillan, myself, Tony Martin. He says, we're all good singers. He says, but we're neither of those guys. He says, and really, Black Sabbath is Ozzy. Ozzy is Black Sabbath. So they're on tour. They can't depend upon Glenn at this point. Tony has hired a 24-hour bodyguard to keep an eye on Glenn to make sure he doesn't go off the rails. That even becomes hard to manage. So once again, Glenn proves himself to be undependable. Tony kicks him out of the band. They bring in Ray Gillan to sing the rest of the shows on the tour. And that's it for that part of Glenn's history with Black Sabbath. Now we go to 1987. This is the second of the Phenomena album. And Glenn is now sharing lead vocals on this album. With who, do you ask? Ray Gillan, the guy that replaced him in Black Sabbath. Yeah. So that's a little bit of irony there. 1988, Glenn reunites with Pat Thrall just to do one song. It's, what the hell's the name of that thing? I don't even have the name down. I didn't care enough about it. They do a song for the Dan Aykroyd movie, Dragnet. So the only other money Glenn has coming in at this point now is Deep Purple royalties. So out of the blue, he gets a call from John Norum, who's in the band Europe. The Final Countdown. Yeah, that band. So he flies Glenn to Sweden with the promise that he'll stay clean. Glenn says, hey man, I'm off coke. I'm good. So Glenn starts doing speed instead. So Norum cuts bait. That's it. But there'll be more on the John Norum story in the 90s. And Christmas 1988, Glenn is now flat broke. Him and Christine are living in the house, and I mean so bad that utilities are cut off. Yeah, that kind of broke. So him and Christine fly to UK to spend Christmas with Glenn's parents. Somehow, David Coverdale and Glenn Hughes' mother are close. So, David's hearing stuff from Glenn's mom. And David Coverdale decides to throw a lifeline to Glenn. And he flies him out to Tahoe. Hey, JT, Glenn Hughes. David Coverdale, say hi to you, buddy. To sing backing vocals on this album. You know what it is, from 1989. The White Snake, Slip of the Tongue. He gives him $25,000, okay? And they finish the album. Glenn goes back to LA. And he gets an offer from Warner Brothers to sign him. They set him up with a 16-track recorder in his house. And, drum roll please, Glenn starts doing coke and ecstasy. So things are starting to come to a crash again. And then he gets a call from this guy, Pete Winkleman, who's a huge Trapeze and Glenn Hughes fan. He was one of the early guys at Kerrang magazine. That's more of a British publication. But he now owns, he's a big shooter now. He owns the Milton Keynes Down football team. And he kind of becomes Glenn's protector at this point. So that wraps up the 1980s for Glenn Hughes. A little less exciting than the 70s, but still, this man has done a lot of living in these 20 years. So that's it. We will be back with part 3. Thank you.